Joe Burrow may be putting together one of the best individual seasons on a losing team in NFL history these days. But back in 2019, he captivated the nation with his meteoric rise that fell straight out of a movie. From being discarded in Columbus to a champion on the Bayou, from the bottom of the depth chart to winning the Heisman Trophy, this is the story of how Joe Burrow went from an unknown transfer to an NFL legend. Now, Cincinnati's signal caller has one of the most athletic families you'll ever hear about. His paternal grandparents were high school basketball stars in Mississippi. Two of their children played D1 football, one at Ole Miss and the other Jimmy at Nebraska. Jimmy went on to coach various D1 college programs, initially settling in Ames, Iowa, after taking a job with the Iowa State Cyclones. Jimmy's two older sons would follow in his footsteps and play for the Cornhuskers, but his youngest boy, Joe Burrow, had something special. Just like his grandparents, Joe's talent first manifested on the hardwood, but he took a liking to football after he was forced to play quarterback when his youth coach needed someone to fill in under center. Born in Iowa, Joe was constantly on the move as a child thanks to his father's work living in Nebraska and North Dakota before eventually settling in the Appalachian foothills of Ohio. Jimmy had taken a job as a defensive coordinator at Ohio University, where the nearby Athens high school football program was fairly unremarkable. That all changed once Joe Burrow walked through those doors though. By his sophomore year, he had earned varsity starting quarterback duties and led the Athens Bulldogs to an 11-2 record in their first playoff appearance in program history. On an individual level, Joe Burrow notched over 4,000 yards of total offense and 60 scores, placing him among the best in the state of Ohio. An even better junior season saw offers come flooding in from various big-name programs, with Nebraska's absence from the list a shock considering his family's history. Joe chose to block out the noise from various basketball programs as his heart ultimately belonged to football. And when the Buckeyes came calling in early 2014, it was virtually impossible for Joe Burrow to refuse. The newest Ohio State commit put together a monumental senior season for Athens in 2014, winning Mr. Football with over 5,000 yards of total offense for 68 touchdowns, en route to an epic state championship clash. And although the Bulldogs would lose 56-52, Joe Burrow threw for 446 yards and 5 scores, a glimpse into his big game abilities that would come to define his career. This heartbreaker though would be his last playoff loss until 2022. And when Joe Burrow finally got to Columbus, he decided to redshirt there his first year, as he was really trying to learn how to study film like a pro.
You know, I win the games on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I don't win them on Saturday. So I'm confident because I understand what the defense is doing before they do it. And that's where my confidence comes from on Saturdays.
Where'd you learn that?
JT Barrett? Yeah, that's how I learned to. You know, I watched film throughout all high school and all that, like quarterbacks do. My dad taught me a little bit about it, but, you know, I really learned how to prepare like a pro from JT.
Learning from the recently crowned national champion quarterback was a big help, but JT Barrett proved hard to knock off at the top of the pecking order. Burrow remained his backup for the 2016 season, eventually falling to third string following surgery on a broken hand in 2017. With Barrett headed for the NFL, Burrow was set to duke it out with Dwayne Haskins for the 2018 starting job. Come around though, and it would kind of prove just his lack of an experience of just not being able to play the game at full speed was really on full display during those spring ball scrimmages and would result in him not winning the starting job.
Confidence was tough to come by when I was at Ohio State and fighting for reps in practice and not getting on the field. And so obviously that grows with time and reps and playing well.
Instead, following their spring game, Haskins looked the favorite for the starting role, leading Burrow to make a tough decision to transfer. In just the span of 3 years, Joe Burrow had gone from being on top of the world in Mr. Football to a non-factor at Ohio State. He was initially tempted to stay close to home and play for Cincinnati, but nearly 1,000 miles away, Ed Orgeron was entering his second full season as head coach of the LSU Tigers and had just lost his starting quarterback to the draft. One of the assistants knew Burrow's father and told him that Joe had a clear path to the starting role. The family subsequently visited Baton Rouge, where Orgeron and his team convinced Burrow of their project and their ambition of bringing a natty to Louisiana. According to Coach O, that meeting was when he knew that Joe Burrow was special. Shortly afterward, the deal was all but sealed in one of the most consequential dinners of all time.
Coach O was talking to me. He's like, "You ever had crawfish before?" I was like, "Yeah, I had it a couple of times." And he's like, "Do you like it?" I was like, "Yeah, I love it." So we go to this place called Mike Anderson's, and
we went there.
yeah, it's right next to my house. And I'm looking for the crawfish on the menu, and there's no crawfish. I was like, oh, I was looking forward to having some crawfish in crawfish country.
Right.
And Coach was like, you want some crawfish? I was like, well, it's all right. I was hoping to get some. He's like, I got it. And he makes a call. Like 20 minutes later, they bring in this bathtub of crawfish, bring it in the back, they boil it, and bring it right back out.
He seized the starting job with ease, but nobody knew what to expect from their former 4-star recruit, as he had only attempted 39 passes in 3 years at the collegiate level. Burrow kicked off his career in purple and gold with a 5-game win streak where he threw for over 1,000 yards and 6 scores, quickly endearing himself to the Tigers faithful. His first loss, though, was pretty ugly, throwing 2 picks in Gainesville before a statement win over the second-ranked Georgia Bulldogs in Death Valley. The glory from that game was short-lived, though, as just 3 weeks later, the Tigers were humbled by Bama 29-0. They had failed the litmus test, but Joe Burrow broke a 4-game passing touchdown drought the following week against Arkansas. He continued to improve late in the season before enduring a 3rd loss against Texas A&M. Burrow put up a whopping 6 total touchdowns on 370 yards of total offense in 7 overtimes in that game in College Station. And after the season finally wrapped up, they were matched up with UCF in the Fiesta Bowl. And truly, this was a game that was either going to make or break Joe Burrow's final career at LSU. He had finished strong, but overall had been pretty inconsistent, and this would be his chance to prove that he could back his ambition on the field and possibly challenge for a championship in the year to come. And at the beginning, it certainly didn't look that way, as the Tigers wasted a beautiful opening kickoff return from Clyde Edwards-Helaire by failing to convert in the red zone, settling for a field goal before UCF marched down the other end of the field for 7. Burrow got the offense cooking nice and steadily, moving down the field with the help of some tidy runs from their running back, but on a 3rd and 8, Burrow threw a wild pass straight into the arms of Brandon Moore, who ran it back for a pick 6.
Joe Burrow threw it right to him, and Brandon Moore down the sideline. In the late, as Burrow is still on the ground, touchdown should stand, as Burrow remains on his back.
As he was on his knees catching his breath, Nate Evans, a linebacker for the night, came over to chirp a visibly struggling Burrow. Evans may have taken some of Burrow's pride on that play, but Joe took UCF's soul over the course of the next 4 quarters.
Burrow to throw. Now they'll take a shot. Lofts one for Jefferson. He's got it. Pressure from UCF. It's picked up nicely. Throw across the middle. Floated in there for Dillon. Down the sideline. A 29-0 this season. The throw.
He logged 394 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, 3 of which were shared between sophomore Justin Jefferson and true freshman Jamar Chase en route to a 40-32 win. And not only was this game just kind of a sneak peek of what was to come in that 2019 season, but this game also was just undoubtedly the turning point of Joe Burrow's college career. Not just for the obvious reasons that he came back from a bad start, showing a physical and mental toughness that nobody knew he had given his limited playing time at Ohio State, but the man himself had provided some insight into why the Fiesta Bowl was so important.
The bowl practice, because I got there in the summer. I didn't have a spring practice with them, and the bowl practice was kind of a spring ball for me.
Right.
And so I got with my guys and kind of treated it like an off season, and then I think that really helped us in the bowl game.
UCF was out to get him that game with one of their DBs ejected for targeting Burrow. The signal caller remained unfazed, delivering when his teammates needed him the most, but what makes it even better is that he snapped UCF's 25-game win streak. Finally getting a full offseason in the Bayou paid dividends for the entire LSU squad, none more than Joe Burrow. You see, he had only arrived in Baton Rouge in May of 2018, which gave him about 3 months to gel with his teammates before the start of the season. This time around, though, the Tigers were serious, and Burrow knew this would be his last shot at winning a national championship. They opened the season with a blowout win over Georgia Southern before visiting Austin to let Sam Ehlinger and company know that Texas definitely was not back yet. Burrow's 471 yards for 4 touchdowns helped the Tigers to their first top 10 non-conference win in program history before scoring 65+ points in back-to-back games against Northwestern State and Vanderbilt. 2 weeks later, Burrow got his revenge over Florida with 3 scores before dogging on his grandpa's alma mater with 4 touchdowns the week after. A narrow 23-20 win over Auburn had LSU headed to Tuscaloosa battle-ready, undefeated, a completely different beast than they had been in 2018. I mean, look, to pose a threat to this Bama team, you pretty much had to play completely flawless. The Tigers leapt out to a 33-13 lead by halftime behind a level-headed Burrow, who ended the night completing 79% of his passes for nearly 400 yards, no picks, and 3 scores. LSU held off a second-half comeback from the Tide, winning 46-41, snapping an 8-year losing streak in the rivalry in a 31-game home unbeaten run for Bama. LSU won out for the rest of their season, even pummeling Georgia in the SEC championship game and Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl to set up a national championship clash against the reigning champion Clemson Tigers. I mean, even despite going down 17-7 early on, Joe Burrow was such an established big game player by now that he had no fear or panic ever crept in on him on the LSU sideline. Like, I mean, hell, even with torn rib cartilage, this guy fought through the pain and put on an absolute show, finishing the night with 42 points to Clemson's 25. The win was never in doubt, and Orgeron had delivered on his promise to Burrow, and the LSU Tigers had put together one of the greatest seasons of college football ever. Burrow went on to also win the sport's most prestigious individual award by nearly 1,900 points, comfortably the most sweeping victory in Heisman history. I mean, even looking at the stats, it's not even hard to see why, as his 5,671 passing yards for 60 touchdowns on a 76.3% completion rate were all the best in the nation, setting a plethora of passing records at LSU and completing one of the greatest comeback stories in sports, unknown transfer to the best in the game. And not to mention, while all of this was happening too, his draft stock was absolutely skyrocketing.
The Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU.
Burrow started hot for the Bengals team that was coming off of a 2-win season, throwing for over 300 yards in 5 of his first 7 games for an interception to touchdown ratio of 9-5. The team around him was subpar, finding themselves with only 2 wins by the time they headed home for Washington for a Week 11 matchup.
It looked like his left leg, oh no, the #1 pick in the draft looks to be seriously hurt, grabbing at his left leg. Burrow was on pace to break the rookie records for passing yards.
Like, I mean, up to that point, he had been on track to break Andrew Luck's rookie record for passing yards, but the league would have to wait until 2021 to see any more of Joe Shiesty. And of course, we know knee injuries of this magnitude have the potential to easily ruin careers, but since he's number 9, didn't seem to doubt he'd make a full recovery, tweeting out, "You can't get rid of me that easy. I'll see you next year." As always, he backed that up with dedicated rehab, which allowed him to make it back to start week 1 of the 2021 season. And now, I mean, look, making the recovery that fast is one thing, but to not lose a step like he did is a totally different kind of thing he had to do, which he looked phenomenal. Linking back up with his college teammate Jamar Chase, the Bengals downed Justin Jefferson's Vikings in week 1. And I mean, the team did struggle for consistency from there on out, but still managed their first winning season and division title since 2015 behind a monster year from Burrow, where he averaged a 70% completion rate for 4,611 yards, 34 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. Just as he had against UCF and in the national championship game, Burrow came back from injury to dominate, which was a testament to his unwavering resilience. For the first time in the NFL, he'd get to show his big game chops as well, willing Cincinnati to its first playoff win in 30 years by downing the Raiders 26-19 at home before a dramatic last-second field goal beat the Titans in Nashville 19-16 to set up an AFC championship game clash against the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Many great teams had stumbled at this hurdle in the past, and it looked like the Bengals would follow suit, finding themselves down 21-3 deep in the second quarter. Suddenly though, the offense came to life with their running back putting some magic on a check down from Joe Burrow just before the half, and even defensive adjustments from their visitors provided their offense with the platform to complete the comeback and go up 24-21, with the old Chase Burrow link proving crucial in the game-tying drive. KC did make it 24-24, only to let Cincy score a game-winning field goal in overtime, earning the Bengals their first Super Bowl appearance since 1989. The Super Bowl itself was pretty underwhelming as the Rams outlasted Cincinnati 23-20, while Burrow threw for a score in 263 yards. The tale of the tape in these playoffs in general was that Burrow took 19 sacks, which was the most ever in a single postseason. In 2022 though, though, the Bengals came back looking better than ever with a 12-4 record, earning them their first back-to-back division titles in franchise history. Burrow's regular season contributions were enough to get him his first Pro Bowl nod, and he carried that efficiency into the postseason. He was once again a crucial part of a wild card and divisional round win over the Ravens and Bills, outdueling Josh Allen in Buffalo for yet another trip to Kansas City to face the Chiefs. This time though, Burrow did struggle, throwing 2 picks to 1 score while posting his worst ever passer rating in a postseason game. Defensive errors didn't help either, and the Bengals were bested 23-20 on a last-second field goal. Unfortunately, injury limited Joe Burrow in 2023, failing to get his revenge or justify the record-breaking extension he did sign that offseason, as he did miss the final 7 games of that season and the Bengals were last in the division, and he did require wrist surgery, leaving many question marks about how they'd look in 2024. And truthfully, the answer about that is that really nobody knows how they look this year. They really do look better than what their record does show, but they keep just losing every single close game that they are a part of. 7 of their 8 losses have come in 1-score games. They have one of the bottom 5 defenses in terms of yards and scoring, while the offense is top 10 in both categories. Joe Burrow is enjoying a career season, leading the league in passing yards, completions, touchdowns, and yards per game in a year that has largely been overshadowed by off-field contract drama for the Bengals. He also was caught getting in a heated moment with head coach Zach Taylor on the sideline after a Week 15 win against the Titans, showing just how high Burrow's standards are for success. Regardless though, Joe Burrow remains an elite quarterback nonetheless. And honestly, I would even argue that if he did have a winning record this year, he would be the MVP frontrunner by a long shot. I mean, who knows, if the Bengals next season can get things going in the right direction, their Super Bowl window could actually stay open. Right now, their quarterback does already sit atop the all-time completion percentage list, and it would be a waste to not surround him with a team that's ready to win while he's in his prime. If Burrow can bring Cincy its first Lombardi, he'll certainly cement himself as one of the greatest to suit up in the black and orange. A feat that's even more impressive when you look back at just how tumultuous the early years of his college career were. 10 things you didn't know about Josh Allen? Then click this video right here.